Woo, we are live. Hey guys, thank you for coming tonight. And we're talking tonight with the author of The Best Week That Never Happened. And yes, I'm cheating and reading that out of my screen so I do not mess up the title. Dallas Woodburn. And
Hi.
I love this cover. This is so gorgeous with like the leaves and then the stars. It just works so well. And I mean it just pulled elements like from the story because it's Hawaii and then the stars and the volcanoes, cliffs, or what did they say? The lava tubes or something.
Uh-huh.
And it works so well. It's so gorgeous.
Yes, I love the cover too. I thought my cover designer, Danielle Doolittle, and then the whole team at my publisher, Month 9 Books, did such an amazing job. I still remember when I got the email with it said, your cover attached, and I just clicked it open, and I was so excited. I just fell in love with it right away. And like you said, I was really happy how I feel like the vibe of the book is really captured so well in the cover.
It is. It's so pretty. And it's very eye-catching. It's like, if you saw this on the shelf, it's definitely something you would want to pick up and see what it's about. Which, I started reading this and I was like, I'm gonna read the back of this because I don't generally read book flaps. I
Uh-huh.
go I go into books not knowing what I'm getting into unless somebody's told me. So it's like, okay, so this girl's like dead and she's a ghost or something. And it's like I started it and it's like that's the like what I got from like the back of it, and then that's kind of not exactly what's going on. So that was a nice surprise
I'm
because
so glad.
usually I can pick out what's going to happen beforehand because I read so much, and this one I didn't. So I always like when the way the story goes isn't what I had initially thought it was. So
I'm glad. Thank you.
so
That
props, you stumped
oh
me.
yeah, that is always hard. I think especially people who read so many books. I think I heard before that there's, I don't know, like 9 or 10 stories that it's like as writers we just keep kind of telling over and over again.
Mhm.
So mine definitely has, love story elements and things that will be familiar to readers. But I'm glad there were some things that were surprising to you.
I loved it. It was good. All right, guys. So, as usual, if you would like to ask a question, you can toss it in the comments for the live chat. If for some reason YouTube will not let you do that, you can toss it onto Twitter. Just tag me. You can DM it to me on Twitter or make a comment on Instagram or DM me on Instagram. And I've got my phone, so it will pop up. So, just let us know. And I just lost my questions. Okay, so we already have some write ins.
Oh,
And
great.
yeah, Katie Marie says, I love your cover. And she says,
Thank
hello.
you.
Hello, Katie.
Hi. Thanks for
Thank you
being
for coming.
here.
And first question is always the same. So tell us a little bit about you and your journey to becoming a writer and your books that you have out.
Yes. So The Best Week That Never Happened is my debut YA novel. It's actually the fourth novel that I've written, but it's my first one to get published. So I've been writing for a while. I've loved to write since I was a little girl. My dad is actually a writer. He is a newspaper columnist. And so,
Cool.
yeah, I just grew up with a writer in the family, seeing him working. He often worked from home at our kitchen table. He'd be, typing away. And so I just think as a child, even, I was really aware that being a writer was something that you could do as a job. And like all the books that I loved reading, there was actually someone out there, like a real person who wrote them. So I think that just having that like connection at such an early age made me realize this is something that I could do and something that I wanted to do. So I've just been writing for, as long as I can remember. It feels like a part of me. And I just feel really grateful that The Best Week That Never Happened ended up being my first book, my first novel out in the world. I've published a few collections of short stories previous to this book, and I have different short stories and essays in magazines and journals. I've been like a freelance writer before, but there's something really special about like a debut novel. I think just having, one story where you really get to know the characters so well and kind of be immersed in the world. I think that the response I've gotten from readers to this book has been just so wonderful. And I feel like these characters that I got to know so well, readers get to know so well also. So if there are any aspiring writers out there listening, I feel like it took me a long time of working hard to get this book's publication. But looking back, all the manuscripts that I finished taught me something, and I feel like just made me a better writer. And I think that this book is my best book, and so it's exciting to have this as like my first one out in the world. You know, I think that there were definitely good things about my other books I wrote, but this one feels like you know, the one that was supposed to be the first. So I would just say keep writing, keep plugging away. And I think often for writers, it's not the first book you write is the first one that gets published. Sometimes you have to learn a little bit as you go along before you get that published book.
Does take a while sometimes. Let's see. So I love the setting of the story where, you know, you have like this train accident that happened, and then it goes into the actual core of the story where, you know, the girl wakes up and she's in caves and she has no idea what's going on. Why did you choose that to start, like that specific area to start the story, and why Hawaii?
Yeah, so normally this book was a little bit different for me than a lot of other stories that I've written. So normally with my previous novels or with short stories that I've written, I usually get a sense of characters first, and I guess maybe like little scenes instead of plot. Like usually plot doesn't come to me first, and usually the beginning of the story isn't like the first thing that I write. But for this book, I just had this kind of just like lightning bolt idea of what you see as the opening scene of the book with my main character, Tegan, waking up in these lava tubes in Hawaii, and she doesn't know how she got there, what happened to her. And so that was one of the first scenes that I wrote. And I was just so curious, as I hope that readers are, to find out more about, you know, what did happen to her. And I really felt as I was writing this book, I felt very immersed in it, almost like I was Tegan, like exploring the world. And I've been to Hawaii, and I started writing this book shortly after the last time I went there, and so I do think that, you know, worked its way into my subconscious. And it didn't really feel like a conscious choice of I'm going to set this book in Hawaii. It more just felt like the story kind of sprung up within me, and that was where it took place, in these lava tubes, and that was you know, where my character was. And so I kind of just followed it from there. But I really tried to do as much research as possible to make it seem both realistic and also really respectfully represented. So my main character, Tegan, she is a tourist to Hawaii. So she's like me. She's not a native Hawaiian. But I did a lot of research. I read books by Native Hawaiian authors, and I actually have a list of some of my favorites up on my website, dallaswoodburnauthor.com, if anyone wants to go check them out. It was really wonderful to get immersed in Hawaii, both from traveling there myself, and I can definitely say that it was really fun research, you know, to do traveling to Hawaii and doing things like my characters do, like this nighttime manta ray snorkel, and snorkeling with sea turtles, and trying out a bunch of wonderful food. And so it was, you know, really fun, definitely, to do my research for this book. And so the setting, I'm really always happy when people tell me that they feel immersed in the setting, almost like they're taking a trip to Hawaii when they're reading the book.
Well, it worked. I mean, the whole beginning of the story, you know, it really pulls you into wanting to know, you know, why did this girl wake up here and everything, and it just, you know, goes on from there. It worked very well. See.
Thank you.
Katie Marie says, for me, I usually get very climactic incident near the middle to the end as the first thing for a new project.
Ooh, that's interesting. So it seems almost backwards from, or opposite of what I had with this book, where I really had an idea at the beginning. I did have an image. So at the end, there is a scene with this manta ray snorkel nighttime that my characters do, that I had an image for that towards the end, but I wasn't quite sure how the characters were going to get there. And actually, I thought the book, when I first started, I thought the book was going to end differently than it does. So one thing I love about writing fiction is the way that it can surprise you as you go along. I think especially if you feel immersed in the story and like your characters feel real to you, they can sometimes make decisions and choices that you as the writer weren't anticipating. So I like that though, about having the climax as the first thing that comes to you in a project. I mean, I think that would be interesting to be writing towards that the whole time. Sometimes I don't really know the climax until I get there.
I can understand that. I mean, I know people will sit down and they like plot, every single step of the way for their books. I don't think
Mhm.
I could do that. I'm more of a like sit down and just write, and then see where it goes.
Yeah, I've heard writers discuss that idea of the pantser versus the plotter, and I think I wish I could be more of a plotter. It sounds so efficient, but I usually have just kind of a vague idea of where I'm going, and it can change along the way.
I've heard it's a lot easier to plot when you actually go into writing. It's a
Hmm.
lot easier. The author, it was the day before yesterday. She was talking about how she was not a plotter at all. She
Yeah.
would sit down and just start writing, and then now she's co-writing a book with somebody else, so she has to
Oh,
plot stuff out. And she's like, when it went out to actually write stuff after they plotted everything out, it's like it goes so much faster.
I can see that.
Let's see, check in for questions. So, do you have a favorite character out of your book?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I think I feel closest to my main character and my point of view, protagonist Tegan. Um, I just felt very in her perspective as I was writing. I feel like I know her so well. But I'm really in love with my character Kai, so her love interest. He is based on my husband and some of his little quirks, like his love for sour gummy candy and his sense of humor and just his kindness and how he cares for Tegan are really um, based on my husband and our love story. And so I would say, Tegan, I feel most like connected to her in her head, but I'm in love with Kai because he's like my husband.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cute. Do you have anything new in the works?
I do. So, as I mentioned to you, Jessica, before we started recording, I have a baby daughter. I guess she's now a toddler. She's 18 months old and she's just running all over the place. So I have less time to write now than I did when I was writing The Best Week That Never Happened. But I really try to carve out even just like half an hour a day. I'm working on a new novel right now. It's a young adult novel, and it's a little bit of a new challenge for me because I've never written with a dual character point of view. So that's been a fun challenge to try to get into two characters' heads and have two unique voices that then weave together in the plot. So I've been working on that. It has to do with parallel universes, and it takes place over
Ooh.
one summer. Something about summer, I feel like I'm just drawn to. The Best Week Never Happened takes place over the summer. This book over the summer.
Well, summer's
So
better because you don't have to worry about school.
yes,
So the teenagers, you don't have to worry about having them go to school anywhere in the book.
yes,
You gotta be
yeah.
so much less hassle.
Yeah, and there's kind of a
That's
sense, I feel
easier.
like with summer, I've even growing up, like I always, even now that I'm an adult and I'm not in school, I just feel like this sense of possibility in the summer. Like it just seems like things are a little bit looser, like almost like anything can happen. So yeah, it's been fun I'm still in the very early stages of the book, but it's been fun to kind of get lost in a new project, and I find myself thinking about it, all the time, and so it's really starting to come alive. So that's been great.
Wait till your daughter gets old enough to go to school and then you hit summer. It's like when you don't have to wake the kids up to go to school, it's like, yes. See, so somebody wants to know, since COVID, and of course people aren't really going to work at least a couple months ago or so, have you found that you have done more snacky foods while you're writing?
Let's see. Well, I definitely am a writer who bribes myself sometimes to get my butt in the chair with snacks. So whoever sent this question definitely is like after my heart. I'm a big chocolate person. I love at Trader Joe's, they have these chocolate covered blueberries that I love because I can just grab a
Ooh.
handful and like eat them slowly. Often I'll go back for like a few more handfuls. But I can usually tell if I'm having a good writing day. It's like I kind of forget about my snacks and I'm just in the zone. But if I'm struggling, I can definitely go through a lot of snacks because I keep like wanting to get more to refuel. So yeah, definitely anything chocolate. I've also been on a goldfish kick recently. Goldfish, little crackers. My daughter loves them. And then tea. Even in the summer, I usually drink hot tea when I'm writing.
That will stick with you forever, by the way. Whatever your kids tend to snack on, you will end up snacking on as well. Just kind of ends up going that way. So how did you come up with your characters? I mean, we know that the male, of course, is, written after your husband. What about Tegan, though?
Yeah, Tegan. Yeah, she kind of just sprung into my head. Her voice. So it's from her point of view. It's in first person. She is based on a lot. So not to get too heavy or sad right now, but I have this dear friend, Celine, and she passed away in a car accident shortly before I wrote this book. And it's interesting because when I was writing the first draft, I didn't like consciously think, oh, I'm writing about Celine. But after I finished the first draft and I went and looked over it, I realized that I really was like working through a lot of my own grief and questions. A lot in the book. There's a lot about grief and loss and kind of this idea of like living each day to the fullest, which my friend Celine definitely did. And I do think Tegan has a lot of Celine in her, just like her fearlessness, her just kind of like sense of adventure and how she always like tells it like it is. Those are qualities I don't have as much in myself. I'm kind of a cautious person and not always, I don't think of myself as fearless at all. But I do think I was kind of channeling some aspects of Celine, and it's been really gratifying to have the book out in the world. Like Celine was so supportive of my writing, and I like to think that she would have loved this book, and it's kind of made me feel like, I don't know, as corny as this sounds, like almost like it's a way of honoring her or kind of like having her in the world still with this book. So yeah, definitely I would say maybe Tegan is a mix of me and some components of Celine too.
Well, I love the let's see, I guess it's not considered a poem. The one line you have in here from Benjamin Franklin, I really love that. I actually shared that on Twitter earlier today.
Oh.
It says a long life may not be good enough, but a good life is long enough. I really love that. Today I was posting stuff about like being positive and that like your scars don't define you and that they should empower you instead. So I really liked that start of that. It was really good.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's actually, I had that towards at the very beginning. That's a line that it's a quote that my brother sent me like shortly after my friend died. And I mean, I wish her life had been so much longer, but she lived such a good life. And so I guess this idea of like, none of us know how long we're going to get, but we can still have like a really good life.
Right. Were there any scenes that were more difficult to write than others?
Yeah, I was very emotionally like in it with my characters, and so I don't want to give anything away, but towards the middle of the book, like there's some revelations the characters have, and actually in a first draft, I feel like I didn't fully like give them enough of emotional weight. It was almost like it was too hard for me to really be in that moment for very long for the characters. So in subsequent drafts, I really had to like dig in and stay in there longer and like I really wanted to show the character's response and like emotional reaction to what was happening in a way that felt authentic. But it was also hard because my book only takes place over the course of a week. And so I didn't want my characters to like they also had to things had to keep moving along in the book.
Right.
So they couldn't spend a ton of time just like wallowing in the situation they were in. So I guess that was kind of nice too, with like being able to move forward. The ending was I think both the hardest to write for me, but also kind of magical in a way. Like I still vividly remember when I finished writing the book, and I wrote, this was before my daughter was born. And so I had more time to just kind of sit and write. And I normally am not a super fast writer. If I can write like 1,000 words in a day, that's like a really good day for me. But for some reason, just as I got towards the end of this book, I just didn't want to stop. So I remember like my last day of when I finished the first draft, I think I wrote close to 5,000 words, which for me is like monumental. And so I think the ending was both, it was kind of hard because I almost didn't want to let my characters go, but at the same time, I just like couldn't wait to sort of see how things would end with them and feel this sense of like just resolution at the end. So yeah, so to me, that was both the hardest, but also I guess the most rewarding.
The ending was very cute.
Oh,
it was very cute. It worked so well.
Thank you.
What do you hope readers will take away from your story?
I hope that readers will feel uplifted and hopeful. And I love how you said, Jessica, in your really lovely review that you posted on Instagram today, you called it empowering, which just, I was like, oh, that's how I want readers to feel, is kind of like empowered and reflecting on their life. And I think during this time, so it's funny as well, just when this book ended up coming out during this crazy pandemic time in the world, that I sold the book back in the summer of 2018. I wrote the first draft a couple years before that. So it's just funny that it's been so long in the making and then it ended up coming out at this time. But I kind of feel like it was the perfect time for this story. Like a lot of people have told me they feel like it's an escape from life. And so I hope that it is about grief and loss and some heavy things, but I also hope the book feels light in a way, and it's really about like the magic of first love. And so I hope that readers feel like it's kind of an escape for them too, and being able to feel like you're traveling to Hawaii even though you're not able to actually travel right now too.
Katie Marie says, oh my God, that is so true. I've been writing before and I'm like, wait, are they supposed to go to school sometime?
Yeah, that's the thing about writing teen characters, is it can be hard to juggle all of that.
There's been a few books where it's like they don't really give you a time frame. So it's like, okay, are we like in the summer? Like that just never ends. Never ends. So who are some of your favorite authors?
Oh, I have so many. Let's see. Well, I can tell you some books that I read recently that I loved. I read Dangerous Alliance by Jenica Cohen. It's an Austen Regency era, like Jane Austen inspired romance that was a really fun escape as historical fiction. I think I admire historical fiction so much as well because I love history, but I've never written historical fiction, like keeping track of all the details and kind of world building a historical world seems so challenging to me. So I really admire that. Yeah. Right now I'm reading A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, which
I love that.
I'm really loving it. I super recommend it. I haven't finished it yet. So tell me what happens, but I really love that one.
That cover is so gorgeous as well.
Yes.
Like all the greens, and like we're in like summer, so it just kind of works.
Yeah, I know they say not to judge a book by its cover.
But we do anyway.
We do, right? You see a cover that draws you in, it's like, ooh. Yeah, and then some of my all-time favorites. I mentioned my dad is a writer. I just love his, like, my all-time favorite writer. My dad, Woody Woodburn. And then I had a wonderful writing professor in college, Amy Bender, and she writes a lot of like magical realism books. And so I think that she just really helped me as a writer see, just kind of like expand my view of what was possible. And like, so for this book, for The Best Week That Never Happened, it's realistic, but there is some magic in there and kind of some mystery. And so I think just she was a wonderful influence on me and her books with this idea of like, doesn't have to be, strict fantasy or strict realism. Right. You can kind of blend the genres sometimes, and that can be really fun for the reader and for the writer. So yeah, she's one of my favorites too.
Awesome. Are you excited for any upcoming titles?
Yeah. Well, I feel like my TBR list is always so long. I'm still,
exploding.
I'm just still buying books, even though my bookshelves are overflowing. Yeah, what are some that I'm super looking forward to? Well, there's actually some that have already come out that I haven't gotten a chance to read yet, but I have them, like The Lucky Ones. Have you read that one yet? That's on my, it's like on my nightstand, ready to read that one. What are some other ones?
Like, I have to go look at the cover.
I know, it's also a really beautiful cover.
By Liz Lawson?
Yeah, by Liz Lawson.
Oh, that's pretty. No, I haven't read that one.
Yeah, that one I'm just waiting to dive into.
Ooh, that's pretty.
Oh yeah, there you found it.
It's like, if I can get the glare off of it, you guys might be able to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a fellow 2020 debut author. I've been trying to read a lot of 2020 debut authors just because it's been really fun to get to know these fellow authors as we're all debuting during this time. And also, it's just such kind of a rough time to be debuting. So I think it's great to support debut authors right now. We really, appreciate everyone's support.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. So do you think you'll stay within the area of young adult, or do you think you'll branch out?
I haven't fully thought of beyond this current book I'm working on is also young adult. I do love young adult. I love reading it. I love that age of writing about high school characters, I think, because I feel like it's a time of so many firsts, and you're still kind of figuring out your identity and who you are and how you fit in the world. I think high school for a lot of us is a time that can be very vivid, like we still can remember very vividly. So something about that age I feel drawn to when I'm writing. But, some short stories I've written, my first short story collection was for adults. It was adult stories. And I could see myself writing novels for adults in the future. And who knows, I've been enjoying reading just many different genres more and more. Like I still can't really take horror very well. I'm just not very good with scary, but I like mystery, fantasy, like humor. And so I maybe in the future I'll get some ideas for books that are kind of outside of just kind of contemporary young adult too.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not just contemporary though, because you have that hint of, the magical realism and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever go full on fantasy, sci-fi or something? I mean, 'cause, like, your next book is parallel.
Yeah, maybe I'm kind of inching in that direction. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is really fun to get swept away not only in a new book with these new characters and kind of be escaping into this fictional world, but to have a whole other component of that being a fantasy world, or like you said, a sci-fi. It's kind of like a whole new element. I do think that I've heard other writers say this as well, that it's sort of like with every book you're trying to kind of challenge yourself, do something new, like stretch and grow as a writer. And so I could see for me, since my first ideas that have come to me for books haven't been sci-fi or fantasy, that would maybe be like a challenge that maybe will appeal to me in the future.
I think you could do it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
With this, I mean, you did your homework, with all the aspects, of being in Hawaii and everything else, and the nice twists and turns that are in this one towards the end of it. I think you did good, especially for a debut.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, that looks to be all of the questions that we have for you today. So thank you so much for coming on. Guys, I was going to sit here and do every single person that's going to be coming on next month, but I'm only going to show you next week's books because I never know when the power is going to go out. I'm actually surprised that it hasn't gone out again now. So we actually only have two authors coming on next week. We have Sarah Henning of The Princess Will Save You. I know that online it still says The Princess Will Sage You. Apparently I did not catch the autocorrect. She is also the author of, I think it's Sea Witch. It doesn't say on the back of it, but this is a retelling kind of a gender swap of the Princess Bride. So
Ooh.
Princess Buttercup saves him instead of the other way around. I love the Princess Bride, so I can't wait for that. And she will be on at 8 p.m. on the 2nd, which is also in Darn's birthday, my oldest. She will officially be 16. And then the other one is from Corey, and I think it's pronounced Heydu, maybe?
It's a great cover.
Right? Isn't that gorgeous? It's got like a clock in it and all this stuff. It's so gorgeous. And she will be coming on the 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this one, the princess of ever are beloved by the kingdom and their father, the king. They are cherished, admired, and cursed, apparently. So that's interesting. Can't wait. So definitely check out the shows. Next week, I will be doing all of the banners and links for all of our authors on Sunday, which is tomorrow. My brain is going to explode from all of the edits that I have to do. But you guys, of course, can check out the full list of authors that are coming on next month at crossreviews.com, and then upper right hand corner where it says author chat, and it will just list everybody. And of course, check out our past shows. So that is everything for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.